pushing that guy slowly but sure.
Nice.
I was trying to. Oh! Cuphead, a game known for its rage-inducing bosses and grueling challenges so hard that only 10% of players ever make it to the end of the game. I decided to take 33 hours of my life, losing my mind on a mission in not only 100% Cuphead, but 300% Cuphead, and collect every achievement the game has to offer. I'll split this challenge up into 4 parts. 1, to beat the base game on normal difficulty, and then once again on expert difficulty. 2, to do the same thing with the DLC. 3, to fully upgrade the Cursed Relic into the Divine Relic, arguably the best charm in the game. And 4, collect any miscellaneous achievements I didn't already collect while 300%ing the game. So now that you know the challenge at hand, without further ado, welcome to Cuphead. I started off my playthrough by skipping the tutorial, getting 3 gold coins from an apple, and starting my first series of boss fights. The first boss I fought was the Root Pack, which there really isn't much to say about them. After beating my first boss, I moved on to another first, my first running gun. And unlike the Root Pack, this running gun was significantly harder. Why? I couldn't tell you. Forest fondles. They fondle my. Oh my god. Oh, I can't even aim there. I don't have the omnidirectional shooting abilities. Oh my, is it even worth it at this point? Door, please stop whining at my door, please. I love you, bro, but come on, man, I'm locked in. You gotta understand. There we go. Just going for it. I'm going for it. I'm nasty. Let's go! B. Okay, you know what? I'll take it, actually. After beating my first boss and completing my first running gun, I quickly beat the rest of the bosses on Equal Isle 1, only stopping to obtain my first super art. I beat this isle quickly, completing all of the bosses in Equal Isle 1 in under an hour. Damn! By breezing through Equal Isle 1, I gained a false sense of security, only if I realized at the time just how hard this game would get. But before we get there, we need to beat the game on normal mode, and the next isle in my way was Equal Isle 2. Equal Isle 2 almost went as smoothly as Equal Isle 1. In Cuphead, like any other game, it gets harder the more you progress, with every isle being harder than the last. I stormed into Equal Isle 2, beating the genie and the clown in half an hour, then went on to first try Von Bon Bon without getting hit once, getting a hard achievement out the way early. I don't know why this was so easy for me, but it was, and I was making quick work of Equal Isle 2. I took a break from curb stomping Isle 2's bosses to visit the second mausoleum, and after unlocking the invincibility super art, my pockets were looking empty, so I knocked out my least favorite part of the game, the running guns. And after spending my coins on some new utilities, I moved on to the last 2 and hardest bosses of Equal Isle 2, Wally Warbles and Grimm. But even though they were the hardest bosses in Equal Isle 2, I still beat them surprisingly fast, and just as fast as it started, it ended, and I found myself moving on to uncharted territory in Equal Isle 3. Equal Isle 3 is special. Unlike the other 2 isles that only have 5 bosses, Equal Isle 3 has 7, and that fact alone makes this isle harder than the other 3, but plus the warranted difficulty increase, Equal Isle 3 is a heavy hitter. But even so, I was on fire. Honey Bottoms was light and Briny Beard was decently hard, way harder than the other 2 Equal Isle bosses. Let's go! Same with the 2 more running guns I beat. Then I helped Miss Chalice one last time to get the 3rd and final super art, which was kinda hard, but it was worth it because it gave me the ability to use stands. Like the things from JoJo Bizarre Adventures, yeah, those. I beat Worm the Rat, which gave me some trouble, then the Iron Giant, which also gave me some trouble, the Theater Kid, and Cala Maria, aka the baddie. And then I beat the Ghost Train. Isle 3 was by far the hardest isle so far. I spent a fair amount of time on Isle 3, spending 3 times as much time on Isle 3 as Isle 1. But all things considered, I still got it done relatively easily. If beating the game only mildly struggling did anything, it further increased the ever-growing confidence that I had. But that was all about to change. Inkwell Hell, the final area of the game. To beat the game, we first need to beat one of only 2 bosses in the area, King Dice. King Dice is unique because in order to beat him, you first need to beat at least 3 mini bosses before you get the chance to face him. And it's all determined on the timing of your parries. You roll wrong, you're done. You could end up fighting a boss that absolutely destroys you and ends your run, or land on a space that sends you back to the start of the board. Remember how I said I was confident? Yeah, well, I was about to get humbled. Let's go! Let's go! This boss took me an hour and a half. Just to give some perspective, around this point in my playthrough, I was spending anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes on a boss. This boss took me 3 times as long. Just as I thought I was going to beat the game smoothly, King Dice's difficulty shook me to my core. And the funniest part about this was, it wasn't even on expert mode. After a small break, up next was the devil. After refusing to hand over the soul contracts I had collected, the fight started. That is an insane intro to a fight. But with my Cuphead skills reinforced by King Dice, I defeated the devil in half an hour, which was relieving. Although cool, turns out King Dice was more of a final boss to me than the actual final boss of the game. After beating Cuphead and looking back on when I was just a kid, struggling, and never making it out of Inkwell Isle 1, I felt ecstatic and nostalgic. But the job wasn't done, and now I had to take on the Goliath of a challenge that was doing what I just did, but now on expert mode. What is expert mode? Expert mode is the hardest difficulty Cuphead has to offer, with the bosses having more health, being way quicker, spawning more enemies, and some bosses just flat out changing their attack patterns. Trust me when I say there was a reason I've been alluding to this entire video. I went all the way back to where my journey had started and swiftly got through Inkwell Isle 1, beating every single boss in a little under 30 minutes. With all the time I had already put into Cuphead, Inkwell Isle 1 on any difficulty wouldn't be able to break me. Although impressive, Isle 1 was night and day to the bosses that I would soon have to fight, and I knew that. So I moved over to Inkwell Isle 2, making sure not to make the same mistake of being overconfident. Isle 2 went the same way as it did on normal mode, except harder. I defeated the genie and the clown, who were significantly harder than normal mode, and beat Von Bonbon surprisingly as easy, getting her dealt with second try. Then, expert mode showed its true colors with Wally Warbles. While trying to beat this boss at times, I genuinely thought that I couldn't. God! Woo! I had to have spent over 30 minutes trying to learn and get past his first couple phases. It was rough. I knew he would be a challenge, but the difficulty left me enraged. Luckily, after a while, I beat him, and I moved on to Grim, which was also way harder than I care to admit, but I still got it done. And with all of Isle 2's bosses down, I moved on to Isle 3. I started by knocking down Honeybottoms after adapting to her slight changes and enhanced attack speed. And the same went for Worman and surprisingly the Iron Giant as well. Let's go! Baby. Oh, it's late. Okay, I need to calm down. Honesty is the best policy, and I am being 100% honest when I say I was extremely worried to fight this guy. He was rough, don't get me wrong, but I had this idea of this guy taking me 2 or more hours, but luckily it only took about 45 minutes, although I was still going insane. I spent a little under 30 minutes on the Theater Kid and only around 25 minutes on Blackbeard, but once again, this is when expert mode gets hard. Pain comes in waves and so does expert mode, and sadly with Cala Maria, Inkwell Isle 3 was a wave and she was a tsunami. She alone wasn't extremely hard and couldn't have taken me over 25 minutes if it wasn't for her ability to turn you to stone, preventing you from moving, allowing her attacks to easily hit you or you to run into a wall or floating skull on her third phase. This made me especially mad because it was something that I couldn't control, leaving me in painstaking fury for longer than I should have been in. It's like the RNG is so stupid. I need to watch a video. I need to stop and watch a video on how to do this. After me and Cala Maria broke up, I started the Ghost Train boss fight. The Converge Gun made this boss's first phase a snooze fest, and the Chaser really helped with the third and last phase of the boss, making this boss fight quick and easy. And now we were once again standing in front of the casino that started this journey, ready to fight King Dice on expert mode. Nervous, anxious, sad. I really wasn't looking forward to this fight in the slightest, but I need to lock in and get it done. I'd come too far and spent too much time to give up then, so I entered the casino. Surprisingly, against all odds, Beating King Dice wasn't harder than when I originally faced him, and I have zero clue why. Although frustrating, going for spaces 3, 6, and 9 because I had the most practice with those 3 bosses, as well as my parrying skills improving, probably made this boss a lot simpler. Although King Dice was easier, the Devil was harder. Way harder, and I ended up struggling with him for a little under an hour, but it was worth it, because through perseverance I had done it, unlocking the Beat the Devil at his own game achievement for beating the game on Expert and officially 200%ing all of the base game. And now that I had beat the game on normal mode and Expert mode, I could finally move on to the DLC. The DLC has 12 bosses, including the 5 King's Lead bosses, the 5 ingredient bosses, the Salt Baker, and the secret boss we need to fight in order to get the cursed relic, which we will need later in the video. I started the DLC by getting a little update on our purpose there. We needed to make a pastry that smacks so hard that you come back from the dead. I started by fighting the Moonshine Mafia, which after completing the game on expert difficulty was easy and gave me my first ingredient, the distillery dough. I swept the floor with the Mountain Giant and struggled moderately with the Ice King, but still got it done, getting me the icy sugar cubes and the gnome berries. Then I moved down to the bottom of the map and came out the dogfight victorious, jacking the pineapple mint ingredient, then destroying the cowgirl first try, getting me the desert limes. Now with all 5 ingredients, I was ready to assemble this godly pastry, but as I entered the Salt Baker's bakery, something was off. He wasn't at the counter and the cellar door was open. As I went down into the depths of the bakery through the ominous hallway, my suspicions of the Salt Baker were confirmed. He was a villain, and he needed a soul for the Wonder Tart. So I put up my fists and started the boss fight with the Salt Baker, and absolutely wiped the floor with him. I mean, what kind of final boss was this guy? This guy was a joke. It took me 15 minutes to commit multiple felonies against him and practically rip the compliments to the chef achievement out of his hands. It was sad, but even though the Salt Baker was a little underwhelming, I still felt relieved that I didn't have to spend hours on him like I would soon come to do in my DLC expert run. But first, we need to take on the King's Leap bosses and the secret boss. I started with the King's Leap bosses. The King's Leap bosses were slightly different than normal bosses because parrying them and using parryable objects were the only 2 ways to defeat them. Each boss symbolized a chess piece. The first boss was a pawn, and just like actual chess, he wasn't too much trouble. Next up was the Knight, which was the most time-consuming, annoying boss out of the 5. There are a couple reasons why I'm so confident in saying that, but the main reason is because if you are slightly too far from him, he will continuously emote, which was annoying. The Bishop was slightly more difficult, making me blow out each candle before allowing me to hit him, but I dealt with him and I moved on to the Rook. The Rook took a lot more focus and was probably the hardest out of the 5 bosses, with the Queen being a close second, but they both met the same fate, unlocking me the Checkmate achievement. All things considered, the King's Lead bosses were not too hard, and the best part about them was that you get 3 gold coins each for every boss that you beat, allowing me to buy every item in the game. After climbing down the ladder from the clouds, my next goal was the secret boss. After figuring out the riddle from the 3 characters at the top of the map, I started my fight with them. I personally think this is the coolest boss of the game. The style of the boss, the way you unlock the fight, the music of the boss, and just the boss itself was super cool. Getting this boss's attack patterns down was confusing and it took me a while to figure out. It was hard getting used to the boss's changing of direction based on the way you faced and I would die frequently. It's depending on where you look. But after some struggling, I got a strategy down and I beat the secret boss, unlocking the cursed relic charm. I had beat the DLC, but I couldn't relax yet because I needed to beat the DLC once again, but just like the base game on expert mode. I wasn't too worried about this, but after genuinely tweaking out beating the game on expert mode, I was nervous. And looking back on it, I should have been, because I was about to face the hardest challenge I have ever faced in any video game I have ever played. I got through the Moonshine mob boss in about half an hour. Not bad considering that's around the average time I would take to beat a boss, which started my expert run off on a good note. Then, I moved on to the Mountain Giant, which I completed in half the time of the Moonshine mob. To say I struggled on him would be a blatant lie, and quite frankly, he's the easiest boss of the DLC. Next, I wanted to get the Ice King out the way, which was frustrating. I spent an hour on this boss, which was twice as long as the Moonshine mob, and at times I felt it was extremely unfair. His first phase was easy, but his second phase, having twice the amount of popsicles to dive bomb me while dodging ice cubes and the snowman himself rolling and bouncing across the room, was definitely a challenge. But as a gamer of my caliber does, I practiced and finally beat him and breezed past the rest of the bosses. The dog boss I completed in half an hour and wasn't too eventful, and I stomped on the cowgirl boss on my second try. Luckily, I didn't have to do the secret boss on expert difficulty, so I just moved straight to the Salt Baker. Through the pain and the suffering of this challenge, all of the hours, all of the tries, all of the deaths, nothing Not even King Dice on normal mode could compare to what I was about to face. When I originally stepped into the ring with the Saltbaker, it was no challenge and quite underwhelming, but me and my ignorance underestimated him and thought that round 2 was going to be the same thing. I couldn't have been any more clueless. Just to paint a picture if I haven't already, these are my exact notes right after defeating the boss, and I quote, "Genuinely the hardest and worst thing I have ever had to do in any video game ever. Spent over 2.5 hours on him alone, outclasses King Dice on an immeasurable scale, and I will never complain about any Cuphead boss ever again." This boss was so much harder than on normal mode for a couple reasons. 1, the Saltbaker had 2 fireballs tracking you during the first phase instead of 1. 2, the boss would have multiple attacks happening at once for most of the fight. And 3, each and every attack was way faster. I went try after try after try with the Saltbaker, not stopping to take a single break in the process. There was so much happening during this boss fight, it was hard to keep track of. I was caught off guard, and at many times was too angry to focus on the boss fight, dying in the process, making me even more mad. 2 hours and 30 minutes in, probably around midnight, I beat him, and I didn't even celebrate. I had nothing to say. This boss took me so long and was so hard that all I wanted to do in that moment was go to sleep. But at least I got another goal crossed off of my list, leaving me with 2 more things to do. Remember that cursed relic? Yeah, the one that I got from the secret boss that I said would be important later in the video? Well, my game save after completing the entire game twice only clocks out at 298% complete. To get the final 2% I needed, I would have to take the cursed relic and collect 16 points to fully upgrade the relic into the divine relic. To do that, I will need to defeat a certain amount of bosses with the cursed relic, each boss giving you a different amount of points based on what aisle you're on. But the twist is, your guns are randomized, you have 1 heart, and the only way to get more health is to parry. Luckily, it really isn't as hard as it sounds, at least not at this point in my playthrough. With 16 points collected from the DLC, Aisle 1, and Von Bonbon because she sucks, I had finally earned the cursed relic. I had put hours into achieving these 4 goals, but somehow, someway, I was still missing 16 different achievements. So this is the Cuphead Achievement Rush. There's a set of 5 achievements, each for achieving an A rank on each and every boss in each and every aisle. I completed this in a couple hours, getting me the Sheriff, Boss, Mayor, King, and Ranger achievements. Next was the Pacifist achievement. To get the Pacifist achievement, you need to beat every running gun level without killing a single enemy. This achievement took me a little over an hour and was surprisingly more difficult than I thought it would be. The running gun I struggled on most is a tie between Funhouse Frazzle and Rugged Ridge, each getting me a little more mad than I would like to admit, but still getting me the Pacifist achievement. The next 9 achievements I can't really fit into a category, so I'll just briefly go over each of them. Put on a show. To get this achievement, you simply need to get an S rank on any boss. So I went over to my old friend Goopy Legrande and easily got the achievement. The Golden Touch. For this achievement, you need to beat a boss with one of Miss Chalice's super arts. So I traveled back to the DLC and I beat the Mountain Giant with ease. Decadent. The Decadent achievement requires you to defeat 10 different bosses with Miss Chalice. So after finishing my 4th round with Aisle 1, I collected another achievement. Next up is one of 2 achievements tied for being the most difficult to achieve. A King's Admiration. To get this achievement, you need to beat all 5 King's lead bosses in a row without dying. It didn't take me as long as you would expect, only taking 45 minutes, but something about these bosses made me so angry. Bro, I'm here! I want the smoke! Looking back on it, I have no clue why I was getting so heated, but I was. So it made 45 minutes feel like hours, but we got it done. Cooked to perfection. To get this achievement, I need to get an S rank on any boss in Equal Aisle 4. And there really isn't a whole lot to say about this achievement other than it being 10 times as hard as put on the show. The Hi-Hat. This achievement was to beat any Aisle 4 boss without killing any of its minions. I had completed this achievement by fighting the Cowgirl boss and not killing the only minion she had, making this easy. With 4 achievements to go, I had 2 that both involved King Dice. 1 being Hardy, to have 9 hearts at one time, and 2, rolling 6s, to defeat King Dice without getting hit. And funny enough, I accidentally got the Rolling 6s achievement while on my final attempt doing the Hardy achievement. For the Hardy achievement, you need to use the Heart Ring and try to land on as many heart spots as you can to earn you 9 lives. You need to make sure you parry and you need to make sure you don't get hit once before reaching the 3rd heart space. This achievement is tied with the King's admiration because there is no room for failure. I spent a while on this achievement, and after many tries I was going slightly insane. I messed up multiple times, got hit repeatedly, and even had to completely restart in a try that I stand convinced would have gotten me the achievement. Oh my god, did I actually just... Oh my god, I just did that. I pushed on and eventually claimed victory over this achievement. But funny enough, out of sheer coincidence, I decided to defeat King Dice after getting my 9 lives. Because I had 9 lives. And even though I didn't even know it was an achievement, to my surprise I unlocked the Rolling Sixes achievement. Let's go, baby. Defeat King Dice without taking a hit. Yo! I just got the... Oh! 2 achievements are remaining, one of them being the Bravo Zulu P26 achievement, which was really easy but kind of fun at the same time. It is an achievement you get for beating any boss in the game with only the small plain bullets, so I decided to make this one simple and beat the number 6 boss on King Dice's board for an easy achievement. I picked this achievement to do at the end of my Cuphead playthrough to secure that beautiful blue badge. The achievement is called Selling Out, and you get it for simply handing over the soul contracts to the devil instead of fighting him. I saved this achievement for last not only because it was the easiest achievement in the game, but it also took me back to the credit screen so I could see my fully completed 300%ed save file. And with that, all 4 goals were completed. I had fully beat the base game, fully beat the DLC, obtained and fully upgraded the Cursed Relic, and got my blue badge for getting every Cuphead achievement. I could finally rest now knowing I had accomplished what I set out to do, and at least for now, my Cuphead journey was over. After 33.2 hours of trying over and over again, failing and failing, dying and dying, I did it. As I sit here writing this script, I can't help but feel accomplished, but also a little sad that there isn't another boss in some corner or crevice of the map that's waiting for me to collect their contract. It's a weird feeling. I hated this game, but can't help but look back and wish I could do it all again. This game is special, and reinforces my strong belief that anything made with hard work and a whole lot of passion can be amazing, including games. Indie games are some of my favorite types of games for that exact reason. Cuphead started as a mere idea between brothers, and has evolved to be up there with some of the best indie games to date. Although Cuphead has its flaws, it's a great game, and the best part about beating it is now I can move on to the next challenge. I am Ozone, and if you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate it. Let me know how I did and leave a comment down below on the next game you'd like to see me play or fully complete. Until the next time, stay safe. Peace.